Good evening. Welcome to the March meeting for the Eastchester Board of Fire Commissioners. We're coming back from executive session. So can I have a motion to open the meeting back to a regular session?
Make the motion.
And do I have a second on that?
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Peter Inquinot and Jerry. And what time is it about, Jerry? Here, watch right there. What time? 8:22. Okay, so I guess we've had a fairly brutal month of weather for everyone, and all good in Eastchester so far with the weather. We're running into some slight issues right now with gas mains because they're buried so low that as the weather thaws, we're getting gas leaks around town. But all in all, we went through this winter months quite well, or the last month and a half quite well. And I don't have a lot to comment on tonight. That's pretty much it. I'll move right to the chief's report. Chief Grogan?
Yes, sir. Yeah, month of February. First of all, we had a total of 305 alarms, pretty much split evenly between EMS and rescue and fire-related. As you were just touching on, along with, we did have mutual aid provided on 7 occasions for emergencies between Mount Vernon and Yonkers. It's been busy around us. And then there's a few automatic mutual aids. That's actually when we respond together on the Parkway. As you were just saying, harsh winter weather that came in January has continued through the month. We've had between the regular snowfalls that are one thing. It's the difficulty is due to the prolonged very low temperatures. Things just weren't melting. The very cold temperatures are very tough on the apparatus. So it has been a little difficult, but it's also added to our motor vehicle accidents. There's been many more of those, and as you're saying, with there has been a sharp increase in natural gas leaks throughout the area. Basically, we're talking, old pipes, old steel pipes, and the issue also with gas lines, they're not as deep as water lines. They don't have to worry about a frost, going down 3.5, 4 feet. They're closer to the surface, so they are more affected by the freezing earth as the frost line drops, which is not as often. So you'll get pressure applied and cracks. It's been quite busy. I'm sure it's going to continue a little bit longer. You do need to be aware. If it's out in the street, it's usually not that big an issue, but you don't want to ignore it. If you smell gas in your house, you're best to just leave. Don't turn switches on or off. Don't answer the phone, things like that. Just leave it be. Better off get out, call the fire department, call Con Ed, and we'll do a thorough search. I mean, they were just out again last night. Yesterday after morning, it was a prolonged operation with Con Ed because once they find it in the sewer lines, now they have to enter nearby homes to make sure it's not following the sewer pipes up into the basement, into the house. The reason I bring that up, yesterday was a perfect case. The call came in, it was in the basement. People have a habit for groundwater or drainage, loosening a cap on their house trap that's in the floor. Never, ever, year-round, do not remove the cap on the street side of the trap. The purpose of that trap filled with water is to prevent even your normal sewer gases and odors from the street coming back into the house. What happened here was the street side was also open. The natural gas leak out in the sewer line was just following the pipes and filling up the house with gas. Please, if you have water issues in the basement, find another way. Do not open up that street side of the house trap. Okay, I'll move on. Vehicle maintenance, the needs have also increased along with the weather and extensive use, and with snow chains is actually harder on the apparatus. We've had some freeze damage due to the water that goes through the auxiliary cooler being exposed when you're in the single digits, unless it's in pump generating a lot of heat. it's difficult to avoid. Fortunately, we only had one pumper that had that damage, and it was a fairly quick repair. But it does take the apparatus out of service when it happens, so that's been affected in cold weather. Along with that, we've continued. Ladder 16 has been up at Ruscon for much-needed service. The ladder testing had been complete, but it's still not returned. They're finishing up on the service with that. Following that, I will be sending engine 27 up, which is presently out of service in the shop. That engine actually lost its fuel tank. Combination of salt and everything the straps wore, and responding to a call, the tank fell out. That actually got repaired quickly, but in the process, the mechanic from Ruscon identified a problem we believe is just maybe a leaking injector. It's allowing fuel to get into the crankcase. So we immediately put it out of service, change the oil, and as soon as 16 comes back, that will go up to get all the injectors taken care of. We're fortunate we didn't spin a bearing, or that would have been a much different story. After that, engine 29 is on the schedule to go up. That was on schedule before that. After that, then I'll have to send engine 31 that had damage during the ice storm. We'll need to go to the body shop, which is getting the parts. That is being covered by insurance, but again, it's another, that's going to have to come out of service, and that could be almost a month out of service. So needless to say, our Pierce, our Green Monster, is serving the district well again, and ready constant service rather than just sitting in the firehouse. Fire prevention offices continue to be quite busy as always. They do a very good job up there. Captain Pintaval and firefighter Vitarello. In addition to the daily activities, also as a result of the snowstorms, they actually end up spending a lot of time. They've always been proactive. We have a lot of buildings with fire department connections, whether it's for automatic sprinklers or standpipes. They always go out following a snowstorm, and they will go and try and check on all couple of hundred standpipe connections to assure that the property owners or maintenance people are keeping them clear and free of snow and ice. And, so that eats up a lot of time. They also spent nearly a whole week finally getting into the Eastchester School District buildings after attempting for quite a long time. It was very thorough inspection. They actually they're putting on a schedule for the Easter break to just finish up on a couple of outbuildings, and there will also be extensive follow-up with the school district. As it turns out, they uncovered an extensive list of issues between the different schools, and some fairly serious and need immediate attention. We are staying on top of it. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting scheduled that will include myself along with the superintendent for next Friday to review what we have found and to see what kind of progress they have made on correcting the numerous problems throughout the school district. I should note Eastchester is the only school district that, for the years that I'm aware of, the fire department was not allowed to do the inspections. They chose to go outside. We have always done the inspections, Tuckahoe, Bronxville, private schools, and we've never had a problem. They've never seen a list this long, so we will address that.
So it's,
Let me
how many years after
Well,
how many years were you allowed in?
I've been sitting in this seat about 10 years.
For 10 years, we have not been allowed to get into the schools to inspect them.
We're allowed into the schools, so walkthroughs and stuff, but they have chosen to not use Eastchester Fire Department for their annual inspection required by the State Education Department.
I think we should have a separate discussion on this in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But it's safe to say the Bronxville School, the Tuckahoe School, work with the fire department every year. Your CO for a public school building lasts 11 months, and every 11 months you need your building refire inspected. Tuckahoe and Bronxville schools have always used the Eastchester Fire Department to do that walkthrough and certify their buildings. Those school buildings are perfectly safe and up to current code. We will talk in a few minutes about the Eastchester schools, which have significant problems as far as being up to code.
Okay, let's move this. basically what I'm saying, they've been very busy. The snow has been adding between they're checking the standpipe connections. We have spent a lot of time out trying to address issues with hydrants, which is really the same experience many other districts. We try and emphasize every year. Now, hopefully, we're done with this year. It's water under the bridge. It's really not our responsibility, but of course, we'd be foolish not to care. We make the firefighters make a great effort in trying to get it in. There is a limit when the temperatures are extreme to have the apparatus out. But at the same time, it's the same reason why we reiterate every year, please, the residents, property owners, just like you're required to clean a sidewalk, please help keep the hydrants clear. And the worst are the ones that the property owners actually add to the problem by piling snow on it. I know of one that was basically covered under about 8 feet of frozen, shoveled snow. And basically, we knew we just were not going to see that hydrant for a while. I made no attempt to have the guys try because it would possibly cause injury. It's foolish. Just help us out a little bit. The guys try hard. It's been a rough winter, and everybody's chipped in. And luckily, fortunately, we fared well through this winter. It was an unusually hard one for our neck of the woods, and it's not unique to Eastchester. Also, continue progress, personal matters. Although I will admit, it's been a bit of a setback this past month. A lot of items that were being handled by part-time help in the front office with the loss of some administrative position in the front office there. Gentleman chose to move on. A lot of things have fallen back on me, so that has kept me from taking care of a few other items, but we'll get back on track. We're cleaning it up, and we'll move forward. Okay. At this point, I'd just like to make mention, I found out late, usually I try and give a heads up, a retired firefighter, one of our brothers, Ernest Gallo, that I actually worked a little bit. He was more with my father's time, retired at the end of '89. I found out he had passed away on February 16th. Wow. Long talk with his son. We found out late after the fact, but I'm very sorry. Just like to say, but keep his family in the thoughts. We weren't really given the opportunity to give condolences. It was all, he's down in Florida where the son, he only had one son who was also living there, and it was a little bit unexpected, but he had a good life, and he's going to be missed as all our past retired brothers that go. So just remember Ernest Gallo, brother firefighter Ernest Gallo, retired Eastchester Fire District. So.
Thank you, Chief Groban. I neglected to mention we have one set of minutes to approve. Those are the February 12th, 2015 minutes of the regular meeting. I circulated the minutes. Commissioner Baker corrected my spelling on one line, which is, if you only found one, that's quite well. He didn't look close enough, probably.
I missed the other one.
So,
Chief Rogan picked up the other one.
So, I would look for a motion to approve those minutes.
Well, after you made the
corrections.
I'll be happy to
Yes.
make the motion to adopt it with corrections.
Produce is produce with E instead of a T.
Right.
So, and that's Mr. Baker. And the second?
I'll second it.
Jerry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So, John Molazari, Treasurer's Report.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Evening.
Earlier in the week, I emailed you copies of the Treasurer's Report, including the bank recs. To summarize, through February, that we currently stand with a surplus of $474,000 approximately. $27,000 of that's made up on a surplus on the revenue side by two, I'm going to call them extraordinary items. One's a workers' comp payment that goes back to 2007 on one of the firefighters, and a audit that was done in October. We received a check for $8,800. On the expense side, we have 5 accounts that make up a good portion of where the expenses stand currently, and that is they have they're under budget by $447,000. A lot of the expenses are done on a straight line budget, meaning they're spread out throughout the year evenly over every month, and some only get paid once or twice a year. So they build up and then we pay them and then it comes back down again. So currently we stand in pretty good shape, but listening to the chief, it looks like we're going to be spending money on repairs. So that could eat into it also. Other matters that have happened during the month, our 2014 audit was completed by Sachs BST. We're expecting the audit or the draft of the audit sometime in early April, so hopefully we have that for your next meeting. And additionally, the AUD report or the annual update document has been filed on February 25th prior to the deadline of February 28th.
And that AUD item is not a small filing. That's a fairly long, arduous process.
It's not 100 pages, but it's, you got to go back and get information for the government or the state, and, it's gas numbers and, some stuff like that. Hopefully they look at it and they do something with it for the time we spend doing it.
Right. And we're not going to have to issue a TAN this year at TAN, tax anticipation note. So everything looks like it's doing well.
Doing well.
Okay. Thank you, John. Okay. We have committee reports, but before that, maybe we should take a moment and talk about the school district inspection report at this time. Would I do that now? Or do you want to do it?
Yeah,
Do you want to do it, or I'll do it? Or?
I could do it.
Okay.
I could do it as a concerned parent, actually, since Dennis lives in Bronxville. I'm appalled. I just can't believe that my kids are going to this school with all these violations. Just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that's been going on, and this is probably because they've been neglecting letting the fire department in for 10 years. Instead, they've decided to hire a private inspector, and we finally were able to get these records by foiling them. They wouldn't give them to us directly. So once we foiled, we found out that the private inspector is charging the school about $3,000 per year to do his inspections. What was interesting to us is that this inspector, this previous year, was able to inspect all Eastchester school facilities in 8 hours.
In a single day.
In a single day.
And no cost.
500,000 square feet.
500,000 square feet in 8 hours in 1 day, and charge the school district $3,000. The Eastchester Fire Department does it free for the village of Tuckahoe and free for the village of Bronxville. And because it's been neglected for over 10 years, I'll give you some idea what's electric rooms not labeled, emergency lighting not working, annual report of fire alarm missing, desk and chairs in hallways, missing exit signs, missing rescue window signs, fire alarm panels without signature cards. When was the last time they were tested? No one can tell us. Missing emergency lighting, gym capacity not calculated. How many events do we have in that gym? Missing annual fire alarm report. Stage curtains that haven't been identified on whether they're flame retardant. Think about all the lights that get turned on during a production. Emergency lighting in the stage area, not working. So, and it goes on and on. I don't want to get too much off on a tangent, but...
How many violations were there?
Over 200 in every school.
No, not in every school.
Well, I'm sorry, over 200 in the middle school, 100 in Ann Hutch, and 60 in Waverly.
There's 60 in Greenville also.
60 in Greenville, but the biggest culprit is the middle school.
Well, it's the high school.
And the high school, middle school, high school.
High school combination. Approximately 400 violations.
Yeah, other things that were even interesting, I think most of us are very familiar with office buildings that have fire doors, and they have those automatic latches that when the fire alarm goes off, the doors close. Well, some of the doors had stoppers on them.
Many of them.
Most.
So they defeat the whole...
So they defeat the whole purpose. Someone actually went out of their way to make sure that they don't close.
So what we're going to do is, and the board has been kind of pushing to get this done for the past probably 6 months. And so it's gotten done. We're still going to go, the fire inspector's going to go back and inspect the business office and the garage. And then he has arranged for a meeting with the superintendent of the schools, with the chief. And it's the obligation of the school to correct these. It's we're going to monitor their corrections to make sure they're done. And the goal is to make the Eastchester school as safe as the Bronxville and Tuckahoe schools are, based on how we inspect those buildings. So, and next year we'll be willing to inspect that building for free if they will let us. If they choose not to let us inspect the building, we will do the same thing we did this year. We have a right under New York State law to go in that building and inspect it. We had to make them aware of the law and tell them we're coming. That's what we did. So,
Yeah, I'd note that three things. One, we don't really have a right to inspect. We have an obligation to inspect.
Correct.
You know, we have the right to go in, but we have an obligation to do that. Two, it's we're paying for that as taxpayers also. You know, and that's also infuriating that two school districts allow the fire department in, another one doesn't, but the taxpayers pay for inspections, in theory, in their taxes, and then they get hit again for
a private inspection.
For a private inspection. And third, I will say this in defense of the current superintendent. He's relatively new on the job, and probably most of this predates him, but it's still not acceptable. You know, and it would have been easier cleaned up if we'd gotten in earlier.
You know, one thing that was even interesting on the inspector's report, he had the wrong number of students that were in each one of those schools. Very fundamental stuff that we would think would be calculated correctly, knowing the number of students in each building, was wrong.
I'm sure if there was an incident in the school, the commander on the watch would want to know exactly how many kids are supposed to be in there, but I'm just hypothetical, you know.
they were off by about 100. What we did was we took their list, compared it to the state's website for the number of schools on the report card and their budget, and we noticed there was discrepancies.
So I'm concerned as a student, as a parent who has students in Eastchester School District, as well as a fire commissioner, that all along I thought it was a safe situation, and now I definitely don't feel that way at all.
So stay tuned.
Okay, so we're going to work with them to try to correct it. We'll have Captain Pintaval here at next month's meeting, and he can explain the progress and what they're at and how it's progressing. But and he'll explain that next month. And so firefighter career committee reports. Career committee, Mr. Baker or Mr. Laurie?
Commissioner Laurie and I met with the board recently. We went over the discussions we had with the board for like a first meeting since they had their new election. We'll have another one set up. It was very productive, I thought. We heard some stuff about what they want to do, gave them some of our feedback. I know we're both going to talk about the contract. There was talk about that, not really negotiating, but saying, okay, get your numbers together. We're researching our offer or whatever, and we'll get back together with that. It went about 45 minutes, right, Anthony?
Yeah.
About 45 minutes? And we'll try to set up make it a regular running thing. I don't think I have anything to add. You?
No,
Okay.
I'm good with that.
But it was good to meet with everybody for the first time, so it was very productive.
Okay, I'm going to skip over volunteers for a minute and then come back to it. House and apparatus, Mr. Incledon or Mr. Napolitano, you got the...
Sure. The bid packages for our Station 2 project, Tuckahoe, as most of you are probably aware, renovating taking out and replacing the ramp and sections of the floor. The bid packages are finally complete. Legal notices are going to appear in tomorrow and Sunday's Journal News. The timeline looks something like the following. There'll be an email address that bidders can contact to pre-register for bid packages. Starting Monday the 16th, anyone who's pre-registered could go make arrangements to go to the fire department headquarters at 255 Main and pick up the bid packages in electronic form. We could also email it to prospective bidders if they choose to receive it that way. On Monday, May 11th at 10 a.m., bids will be due. We have scheduled an open meeting on the 11th to open and announce the bids, and we will do that shortly after the due date at 10 o'clock.
What date did you say that was?
May 11th, Monday, May 11th. Between the 11th and the 14th, which is our regularly scheduled meeting, the board, in consultation with the engineer, will meet to review the bids, make sure all the bidders are qualified bidders, make sure that we have the bid security that's required, which in this case is going to be 10% of the cost, bid cost on the project. And we are hopeful that at our May 14th meeting, we'll be able to announce a winning bidder. The tentative start date for the project is going to be June 28th. We're going to be a little bit flexible with that date, depending on contractor availability, materials availability, but we're hopeful it's going to start in and around that time. And the expectation is that this project should only take a month to substantially complete. So our completion date is going to be August 3rd. That's the timeline as we see it right now, and we're hopeful we'll be able to meet it.
And we're just hopeful that the cement they pour is as thick as the bid documents. Because the bid documents are that thick. So, yes, Peter's got a education on what it takes to bid a public project. Budget and finance, I don't have anything unless, Mr. Incledon, you have anything.
No.
And health and wellness, Jerry, I think we have a meeting scheduled at the end of March.
Yep.
Anthony, do we have? I don't think we have anything on these projects we're working on as of yet.
No, but the other day I took a little walk around Tuckahoe Firehouse and the North End Firehouse because I never saw it since it was completed. But first of all, with this new bidding that's going to go out for the Tuckahoe Firehouse, I'm really disappointed. I wish that we'd do the whole floor instead of half a floor, because eventually it's going to wind up doing the other side. And I know that the side where the ladder truck parks is really in bad shape. So I wish you gentlemen consider doing the whole floor on that thing, because
We had several engineers come in to review, the house, the floor itself, and it was determined that, repairs were not necessary on the entire floor.
I hear you, Peter, and they may be partially right, but eventually that whole floor is going to have to get done.
Ultimately, they came in, they inspected it, they decided that it wasn't necessary to repair the entire floor.
Now,
it also would have increased the cost of the project.
I'm sure of that, yes.
Yeah,
substantially.
the main thing was, if I'm not mistaken, is if we did the entire floor, we would undermine the structure and have to underpin the entire firehouse.
Okay, now what happens when they bring compressors in there? Isn't that going to rock the other
Well,
side of that
the main
floor?
reason why that floor broke, from what I could figure out, is that the ladder truck has a tank in it. Well, it was probably not in good shape to begin with, the floor, but because it was originally designed for horse and carriage, and very low, years ago. But having that ladder truck with the tank over the years has just destroyed the floor. I don't see that same level of stress happening on the other side.
Also, potentially, there could have been some water issues on the east side of the house that could have softened the ground underneath the floor and compromised it. That's also something that's being addressed in this repair, is the drainage issues. Listen, we're confident that what is in the plans currently will solve the problems that we have there and be long-lasting, so.
Okay,
And again, we've relied on, we had several engineers look at the job, and
We were thinking the exact same thing. I mean, we were even thinking of lowering the apron.
I know, well, I still don't see that, but if that's what we're going to do, that's what we're going to do. And also, I took a walk, took a ride, and then I took a walk into the firehouse in North End. And I was really disappointed to see that we spent all that money there, all that time there, years, and how many contractors we went through over there, that the basement down there is not completed. You got a half a basement built up for a gym, and the rest of the part looks like it's abandoned. I thought there could be not reconditioned, finished off a little better than that. All we got is concrete walls and concrete floors.
Yeah, it's a
All that
major improvement. It was a major improvement that was there.
I understand that. That was the old hook and ladder room, but for all the money that we spent and time, and then we had to spend more money to set up another firehouse down in the other end of North End, and when we left that room down there not completed, eventually we're going to have to complete it because as time goes on, it's going to deteriorate too.
What are you going to put in it? It's just a cement box. It's just a cement box down there.
I understand that, but you got a concrete floor down there. You could have put a floor down there instead of leaving it pure concrete. It doesn't look right, Dennis. I mean,
it's not space that's needs to be utilized. It's just
not living space.
You know what's going to happen down there? They're going to bring all the junk down there, and you're going to use it for storage. That's what eventually is going to happen.
Well, we actually
really a primary purpose.
We actually fixed the stairwell going up to the attic and put lighting throughout the attic. It made that a reasonable, good storage area.
I still think it could have been cleared up a little better. I don't like the way it looks at all down there.
Okay.
Okay, that's my report.
While you were there, I mean, I haven't been there for a while, but are there some things that still need to be addressed that you saw?
Yeah.
Well,
I understand there might be a leak, also the back door.
I didn't go that far because I was in a rush. I had to go to therapy. I just took a little peek down there, but as far as Tuckahoe firehouses, you need new bathrooms in there. We need
No, I'm talking about 5. Mainly 5.
No,
I haven't been there for a while. That's what I was asking. You were there. I was just curious if you saw anything.
No, I didn't go nitpicking that deep because, like I said, I just stopped in there briefly because I was on my way to therapy.
Okay.
Okay. So,
I mean, let's talk about inspections. Are we ever going to do inspections as commissioners?
But I mean, let's look at the Union Corners firehouse.
We
got that floor shored up for how many years now, Mike? How many years is that floor shored up?
Well, it depends on how far it's been added to over the years. Now, Commissioner Laurie, actually, I think this board's well aware of Station 4 should have been addressed before Station
gentlemen.
5, so this board's aware of that.
I think with Station 4, which is Chester Heights, that building is going to need multi-million dollars worth of repairs.
We know that.
And that is what we're going to be addressing with this engineering study that we're going to do. It will probably won't be able to do a district-wide engineering study. We'll do an engineering study on that building. And when we analyze that building, we're going to come back with a number. It's going to cost X number of $1 million. Then we'll go out with a referendum after we get an idea what it's going to cost. We'll ask the taxpayers if they're willing to fund that expenditure.
Commissioner Winters, we don't need a consultant to come here and tell us that we need a new boiler in that firehouse, we need the floor redone. What is he going to charge us? We know that has to be done. We know it needs new windows in there. We know it needs a new boiler. I mean, that was a beautiful firehouse one time. I remember going down there watching them used to bowl. My brother used to set pins up for the men. But now it's so deteriorated that we have to spend that much money for a man to tell us that we need.
You're going to spend.
We need an engineer to go in and evaluate everything in that building and then recommend specifically what kind of windows are appropriate for that building. We know it needs new windows. I'm not qualified to go in and decide.
No, I'm not qualified either, but we
None
know
of
it
us on
needs
the
a new
board are.
boiler.
Okay, specifically, what is the appropriate boiler for that house? What is the best way to, what should we change? Are there things in the house that work but that should be changed for efficiency reasons because they're costing us more money to operate something that's obsolete technology, or should we replace it just because we'll make our money back sooner? These are things that engineers are qualified to do. There's an entire field in this area called Facilities Condition Assessment, and I believe strongly that that is the appropriate place to start with that project. And we addressed it. We knew that this was a problem, which is why we budgeted the money to conduct that study this year, which we intend to do. But, I agree with you, Anthony. We all know the place needs a lot of work. But we need someone who has the expertise to go in there and basically, tell us exactly what needs to be done and make recommendations on the appropriate way to attack it.
Yeah, and believe it or not, there's something in New York State educational law that, as a municipal entity, we have to comply with. And that means we cannot hire someone to do work on a public building and put out a public contract unless an engineer signs off on it after there's a dollar threshold. And so, just like we had to hire an engineer, you or I or Peter could have called a contractor up on a weekend, showed him what we wanted to do in Tuckahoe, and probably had 3 people give us a bid in about a week and a half, 2 weeks' time, and pouring concrete 2 weeks later. We can't do that. We have to go with this monumental bid spec that New York State law requires us. That's what's going to happen down in Chester Heights. We're going to hire an engineering firm. The rule of thumb for engineering firms, I'll give you the general rule of thumb for engineering firms. It's roughly 12.5% to 15% of the total cost of the project, which you will pay in engineering fees or architecture fees. So if it's a $4 million project, plan to spend $400,000 to $500,000 in engineering fees. That's what you'll end up doing.
An architecture, both.
For an architect, yeah.
Both.
Well, they sure didn't do a good job in North End.
Yeah. Well, there was plenty of disputes about that when it was
I
being done.
understand that, and look how many contractors did we go through, Dennis?
Yeah, well,
Actually, just 2.
we actually 2, and the last contractor, we hired a contractor who was basically about half the price of the highest price guy. He did reasonably good work, passed, is it ideal? No. Are the moldings the way you'd want them to look? No. But is it institutional quality, looks like you'd find in most places done by public money? Yes. So I think we got good value there in the end stage of what we got done. That was it. Okay, so now let's move on to volunteers, the volunteer report. We received a letter from Mr. Horn with a slate of officers for the VOA that he wanted the board to opine on. And the board looked into the VOA as much as it could in the last week or two. And we've asked our attorneys the same question, what is the VOA? We're having a hard time figuring out what the Volunteer Officers Association is as a legal entity. I emailed Mr. Horn asking him a series of questions about what is the VOA. Does it have a tax ID number? Does it have a New York State Department of Charities number? Does it have a New York State registration number? Is it a not-for-profit? One of the titles that he wanted to himself take was a treasurer's title, and he also secretary. It's our understanding he doesn't live in the district anymore. He lives outside the district. Our rules require you need to live in the district to be a member of the department. So we're not sure what the VOA is, so I didn't get any response back to those questions. We also I emailed them and asked them for a list of the name of the name of the fire company, the name of the fireman involved in the Eastchester, if they had the name of his the members, their address, their badge numbers, and who attended the meeting where the voting happened to elect these members to the board. They had to have a meeting, somebody had to vote. So who attended the meeting, and no response. And a copy of anything that was done at that meeting for a treasurer's report. So if you have a treasurer, you assume they're moving monies around. So is there a report they do monthly? We also check with council as far as how many treasurers you're supposed to have in a fire district, because we have a treasurer in the fire district, Mr. Molazari, and it didn't know how we could appoint a second treasurer in one fire district when you already have one. So there's just a series of open questions we have as to what the VOA is and what that, so I don't think we can move forward on that. I don't think we can move forward on it until we know more about what the VOA is. We understand what a company is, we don't understand what the VOA is. And the VOA stands Volunteer Officers Association, I think is what it stands for. But we know little else about it.
So it's an association that we don't accept into our department, or we don't even know about, but yet they assemble at our firehouse locations.
Yes, the VOA is maybe Mr. Lauria can explain what the VOA is. I don't know.
And that's different than the benevolent.
That's, okay, let me,
Benevolent's got nothing to do with
I'm
Let
just
me-
wondering- these go back and forth, and people use them
correct,
interchangeably.
and I
wanna make clear.
misspeak sometimes quite often, so.
Right.
There is the Eastchester Benevolent Association, which, how that works is 2% of the money collected by insurance premiums in the town of Eastchester from insurance companies outside the town of Eastchester gets sent, or insurance companies outside of New York State, gets sent by the New York State Insurance Department to the Benevolent, which was set up by special law in 1940.
Chapter 719.
Chapter 719, that money has extremely tight limits on what can happen to that money. And Mr. Baker can explain what that can only be used for a limited purpose.
Basically, it's the laws of New York, Common 1940, Chapter 719. It establishes a corporation in Section 1. The actual name is Firemen's Benevolent Association of the Town of Eastchester. And that's limited in membership to any active member of a volunteer fire organization in the said town of Eastchester who shall be a member of such corporation and who shall cease to be a member of such volunteer fire organization without having acquired the status of an exempt volunteer fireman shall automatically be dropped from membership in such corporation. It further goes on to say any member who ceases to be such voluntarily or otherwise shall forfeit all interest in the property of such corporation, such as it may be. Paragraph 2 lists, and I'm not going to bore the people at home, but it lists who may be it's the board of directors basically, and what it is it shall consist of the president of such corporation, ex officio, and one director to represent each volunteer fire organization in said town of Eastchester, and then they will have amongst themselves, one will be a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. Section 3 talks about the collection of the 2% money ad nauseum, and the most important part of that is the last line in said paragraph 3, which is, such taxes shall only be used for the care and relief of disabled or indigent volunteer and exempt firemen and their families. Paragraph 4 just says, and I'll read the entire paragraph, this act shall take effect immediately. And that's the entire law, Chairman, and I've researched this, there's been no amendments to said law. So that's the benevolent.
That's the Benevolent. So you have the Benevolent, and sometimes Mr. Horn is president of the Benevolent.
No, he's not.
He's not?
He's not the president of the Benevolent Association.
He is, what is his?
He is not the president of the
Okay.
Benevolent Association. He
Yeah.
is not the president.
Okay. Who is?
Mr. Vaccaro is.
I don't, according to Mr. Horn, the last time I heard him
He
speak
is
at a
not
public
the
meeting.
He is. I'm just telling you, he's not the president.
Okay.
Why would I lie to you, Dennis?
No, you wouldn't. No, but
He held
Is he
himself out to be the
secretary?
president.
he, in the December meeting, I believe he said he was the president, but I may have misheard him. We may have misheard him.
No.
Yeah, that's what I heard, but.
I heard too.
And so, so the Benevolent, just so you know the numbers, we understand the numbers. The Benevolent Association takes in about 100, and do we have the sheet from, Jerry, you have that? What did you guys do?
Yeah, I got it.
We got from the New York State Department of, New York State Controller's Office this week, their filings. They hadn't filed for a number of years, and they filed this week with the Controller's Office. They're reporting $1.8 million in the Benevolent. Based on their investment acumen, they're doing an amazing job on their investments. They make somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 a year.
$340,000 on $1.8 million,
Yeah, they made.
which is a return of 20% in 1 year.
Yeah, they're cranking out about 20% a year on the 1.8 million they're reporting, if it's 1.8 million. But the number
I don't know
they're,
how many people's IRAs track that well
yeah.
this year? Anybody?
So
Did anybody's IRA track 20% this year?
and they've done that for 3 years in a row. I
Done
think.
it for 3 years in a row.
So
Chairman, I have the 2013 filing and the 2012 filing if you want.
yeah, no, I have the
them.
copies here somewhere.
I thought I had.
He thought he has them. Here's,
So
here, take my phone.
So, in any case, it's a vast amount of money, and the reason why the board's focusing on this is because, and it sounds like they're intermingled, the VOA and the benevolent. They're not. The VOA is a separate issue, but that's the volunteers from Eastchester something. We're not sure what it is. Officers Association. The benevolent, in the report they gave to, and Mr. Baker just read the law, in the report I received this week that was filed ending December 31st, 2014, the benevolent provided turnout gear for the volunteers for $10,000, $758 turnout gear. We don't think they can buy turnout gear for our volunteers based on the reading of the law. So we find it awkward that our volunteers would accept the turnout gear and that they're getting it from the benevolent. We also are looking at the bigger picture and saying to ourselves, okay, maybe we have 2 or 3, 4 active volunteers, right? It's a handful. And they're taking in about $100,000 a year. They're taking in basically $27,000. What is it? In this case, they took in $160,000, $158,000 this year. They turned around and passed about $70,000 back to the career membership, who in turn distributed it. The career membership filed also with New York State Department of State of Filing. We received all those. And so it just doesn't look like, if you read the law and you read this, that there seems to be a disconnect. So that's an issue for us, that there's this bright disconnect. The other issue is it fair that the benevolent is hanging on to most of the cash, the career staff is not? They're getting 45%, I think, and the benevolent's hanging on to 55% of the money. The career staff has roughly 75 firemen, and we think there's maybe 5 active volunteers. So, and when I say active, the volunteers haven't responded to a call in years. So this needs to be sorted out. And so we're in the process of trying to sort it out, and we haven't addressed this. This is part of our whole accounting, getting our accounting straight. We have the front office accounting very correct and proper. Yeah, and it's...
I'll let you finish, but...
So that's where we're coming from. And so in our minds, we would like to know exactly what these claims were, the $127,000. What were they? Who got it? How much money? Who was it distributed to? We wouldn't, that's all. We just want to get down to the bottom of all these things.
So this is kind of twofold. I mean, this isn't a witch hunt, okay? The 2% money in the state of New York was originally designed for the benevolent of firefighters, period. Eastchester, in 1947, decided to change that law. 1940, decided to change that law, which is the only district in the state that apparently has this law.
No, it's fairly common with the special law.
There's other ones, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll let you speak to that.
Okay.
But the point is that a majority of these 2% laws can take advantage for example, a group health life insurance for the firefighters. We could be using that money for all the firefighters to pay their group health life insurance policies. And that's actually what departments do in Long Island and other parts of the state. But because the way this law is written, we're not able to do that.
Yeah, but Long Island...
So, and let me finish. So instead, as taxpayers, we're paying group health life insurance for the firefighters, when we could be pulling it out of this $1 million bucket, multi-million-dollar bucket, that someone holds on the benevolent side. So that's just one example. So as much as everyone thinks this is a witch hunt, this is really us trying to make it right. And the department is totally different today than it was in 1940. So the right thing maybe is to change this law, but between that path, we're going to have to find out where this money is.
You want me to explain how?
Yeah.
Okay, there's basically 2 ways this works under the law. There's a benevolent and there's a non-benevolent department. if there's not a benevolent setup, the 2%, they call it a tax money, but it's really paid by your fire insurance. Any corporation, as we said, that's not headquartered, founded in New York, it's the cost of doing business, and it's a way of giving back to the community, because the firemen and firefighters, are the ones that are keeping their profits up by doing a great job. So it goes back. There's two departments that do not get this in the entire state of New York. One is New York City, one is Buffalo, because there are over 500,000 people. And that's how the law was written when it first came in. So every other fire district gets money back. Now, I'm not going to try to impress you and tell you I know what we get compared to Scarsdale, compared to other districts. But if there's a non-benevolent, the money comes in from the state, the Board of Fire Commissioners is the one who apportions that money and spends that money, but that money, there are limits on how that money can be spent. For example, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't spend the money to buy an engine.
No.
You cannot do a building with the money.
You can't buy turnout gear.
Can't buy turnout gear.
Well, in our law,
No, in any.
In the 2% law?
No, in the 2% law, there's limits on how it can be spent. Now, for example, when there isn't a benevolent, you can buy food after a drill under reason, and the term is reasonable expenses, but you could have the fire department turn out, do a drill, and then you could, I don't know, buy the giant 6-foot hero, just as an example of how it can be spent. There are ways it can be spent, but it isn't carte blanche for the Board of Fire Commissioners to spend in any way they want. There are certain limitations, and there's tons of cases on this. For example, in a non-benevolent situation,
Non-special law.
right, it's a normal department that, what happens is, for example, there was a case where a bunch of paid firefighters, the career guys, sued to get, for lack of a better term, and I'm boiling it down, their slice, their cut, because they weren't getting anything out of it, because the volunteers in that particular department were not giving them anything. And the state said, you're absolutely entitled to that in that kind of environment, and ordered them to do the right thing with the money. Now, when there's a benevolent setup, everything goes out the window. It tells you exactly how the money can be spent, how it can be collected, and who can be, right. And that's what happened in Eastchester. In Eastchester, in 1940, the state of New York passed a law to aid, as I said before, and I'll read it again, can only be used for the care and relief of disabled or indigent volunteer and exempt firemen and their families. Now, there's no explanation as to what a family is. There's no explanation of what indigency is, who makes that determination. But the money can't be spent in any other way, shape, or form except for them. So if turnout gear is purchased, it's a potential problem, which the fire board is actually possibly responsible for, even though we can't control the money. If you buy food after a drill, that's a no-go. You can't do that. You can't go to a restaurant and have a dinner. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't spend it any other way unless you're giving it to firefighter X for whatever reason. And it's as I said earlier, the firefighters who are volunteers in that corporation. So they have to be able to be members of the corporation. Just being a firefighter in Eastchester isn't necessarily, according to council, good enough, correct?
Under the special law?
Yes, I'm speaking specifically about Eastchester. So we've got a lot of questions and issues that we're trying to figure out, what the actual rules are.
Yeah, this is peeling back the onion, basically.
Right.
And we're in the process of peeling back the onion, one, on what our volunteer organizations are, the original volunteer organizations, who is in business today and who is actually a volunteer organization, and what the membership is. And the other side is the benevolent. What is happening with the benevolent, and is the benevolent funneling down money to the companies, which we believe it is. And so...
For whatever reason.
For whatever reason, we don't. So that's where we are, and that's the discussion. And as far as the VOA, the board approving this list of officers, we have to find out who the VO is first. Does it have a bank account? Do you know if it has a bank account, Anthony, the VOA?
That don't exist, the VOA, right, Tom?
Doesn't exist.
Okay, that's our point.
Let me give you a history lesson, because you people, a lot of times you have amnesia. The VOA was officers of each company that got together and had a meeting, because every time we came to the Board of Fire Commissioners, the fire commissioners, before you guys got on the board, wanted to know, what do the other companies think? So rather than have 8 companies come and pound on your door, we did it one way. The officers of each of those companies get together, have a meeting. If there's a problem, one group comes to you, just like the union. Not individuals. There's not 4 groups coming at you. It's just the union. So the VOA was set up by you.
Okay,
Your
why does it have a
previous board.
treasurer? If it has no bank account, why does it have
It's
a
just
treasurer?
the officers of each company come in to spill their beans at one meeting, so that if we have a problem, we come to you, and that's that.
But looking at it from my point of view, why did you elect a treasurer if you have no bank accounts or monies?
It's in every company. Every company has everything like that. Every company has a set of executive and line officers in it.
It makes,
That's why the VOA exists. The VOA only exists because of you.
Yeah, but-
If you say you don't want the VOA, that's okay. Then 8 companies will come knocking on your door.
well, why don't we get a list of who's in the 8 companies? That would be the first start.
But all that is up at headquarters. Let me ask you a question. And you're responsible by state law
got the history
to have a
lesson on
house
the VOA.
inspection. Wait a
We're done.
second. You have a house inspection and a personnel inspection every year. The last Tuesday in May was house inspection. First Tuesday in June was personnel inspection.
Which was the
Every,
parade.
every June was attendance was taken at every inspection. When you stopped it, that stopped the information that you would get normally.
Okay, we got
So
the
if
history
you
lesson
look
on
at the
VOA.
last time you had an inspection, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, wherever that folder is at headquarters, you look in it, and there's 8 companies with their roster and the people that attended the inspection or were absent or had a note excusing such.
All right, so
And-
just
and they had-
save us some time. You got to give it to us.
And they have the badge number. It should be all in the
It
headquarters,
should be
Jerry.
all on the slip. It has your head.
I don't want to discuss this now. We just got the history lesson on the VOA. We'll end it there, and you can come back later and discuss with it. We just want the history lesson on the VOA. You gave it to us. We're fine. We have to move on.
Like, for example, here's an example. Badge number 55. Does anybody know what badge number 55 is?
55?
Yeah.
Might have been Ernie Gallo.
Well, he's selling it on eBay.
That's 95.
95.
95.
95.
95. 95. Who's 95?
He's talking about patrol, that's
That's patrol.
company.
Jerry, listen to me. I joined this company, they issued me a badge, 1550.
It's on every application.
And that's on my application when I joined. That was taken right here by Mrs. Gruber. She in turn put it on file, and every person thereafter, before me and after me, came, received their badge with their name, the company they joined, who sponsored them, and that should be all in the records of the headquarters. And that's where, if you want to find out every individual, whether they're present, exempt, because when the man filed for exempt papers,
Sounds like a project for you.
Sounds like a project,
Sounds like a
Anthony.
project for you.
no, it ain't, it's in the front office.
Then,
No, it's...
no, it's not.
Well, I don't know where it is. You can't blame us.
We got
Vol-
the keys.
Well,
We got the
but
keys 3
it's
years ago.
not
They're
a
not-
second-
Wait a minute. The volunteers, when each
It hasn't been updated.
volunteer,
Those records
let me
are-
finish. I think I got the
Down in
floor.
the basement.
When each volunteer joined this company,
Old.
when each volunteer joined this company, he received his badge, his application was examined, he went to the doctor, he did all that, that was put on file, okay? I had a man that lived in my house, passed away, in fact, it was Chip Stewart's father-in-law. I went to the fire headquarters, got all the dates, there was the cards there, I got all the dates when he joined, what company he was a member of, the Waverly Engine Company, received it, wrote it all up, turned it in to the Benevolent Association. The Benevolent Association took action on it and gave the death
So-
benefit.
so
So
it's-
everything
we
should
need-
be in the
Okay,
headquarters.
so let's take that list and put it in a spreadsheet. You want to do that?
The headquarters, who's the secretary of the headquarters? That person's supposed to do all that. That should be up there.
Couldn't find it. Mike?
You can't find all the names of
All the
members that
card
joined.
files are there. The problem is updated. Tommy, okay, inspection stopped a long time ago. This board has showed interest in resurrecting it. What I've been asking for years, actually, from DC, is your attendance. Provide me an up-to-date list. Might not be having an inspection, but really, that's what they're asking for.
But Mike,
Who
that's
still
gotta be
lives-
on file someplace.
Gentlemen.
You're missing, you're not letting me
It's
finish.
not on file, okay? It's not.
Yes.
Yes,
We've
from
discussed
50
it.
years
And-
ago,
and
but do
honestly,
they still live here?
I would be so happy if you can prove us wrong, really. I mean, I would accept the fact that you can prove us wrong. I can't find it.
Jerry,
So,
Depends on what you...
I don't do filing work. Whoever did the filing work's got to be in the cabinets.
well, then we got to reproduce.
I mean, we could go back to the Civil War and find a man's records if you go to Missouri. So
We're talking about up-to-date,
the rec,
talking about current.
well, I don't know who's been doing the records, Mike, in the
I
front.
don't know what I'm saying, what you're referring to is there,
Hey, Mike, we
but when
We
was it
wanna move on.
updated?
Can I make a suggestion? If you have those of the last inspection, just make a
That's
copy
a
of it.
different
We'll go
story.
through it and delete any of the names that are on it that are no longer on it that are deceased. And we'll try to track down badge numbers of those who are still on those lists.
Sounds
That's
like
all.
a plan.
I think we, yeah, and I also think we need to do
the other-
is people who need to be exempt need to be exempt.
You
No.
can't force no one
Can't
to.
force an individual.
If they're
to be
not
exempt.
living,
not residents.
if they're not living in the district, I'll tell you what will
They
happen.
complied to everything that they needed to comply with in order to be a member.
When they move out of the district, they are no longer a member, and what the board will do, I'll tell you what the board, what's going to happen here, okay? Because we can't have these hour discussions.
Disciplinary.
Okay? We have the right to have a disciplinary hearing and remove those members who are not living in the district from the ranks of the fire department. If they're removed from the ranks of the fire department, they cannot become exempt after they've been removed. That's the way it works.
Okay.
So anybody who's not living in the district,
Just,
get their exempt papers because they will be removed.
all right. Another item. There's more than a handful of members in the department.
Prove it.
And you keep mentioning the benevolent. I'm going to tell you one thing about the benevolent. Back when that was set in 1940, there was probably 700 volunteers in this department.
Yeah, we know.
Okay? So the benevolent, whatever money they have, and it's not as much as you think it might be, we have to cover 700 of those people from 1940, because those are the people that are dying now. So there's probably 600 or 700 people out there that are entitled to a death claim or indigent, whatever it may be, that is going to come in and try to collect some
I'm
of
sure
that
the
money.
benevolent knows how many people are exempt and they can figure it out.
If they're exempt, they got certificates. That's up at headquarters too in the book.
Okay.
Once a claim needs to be filed, that gets sent to the headquarters, and
I
then
got
it
it,
goes...
I got it.
Hope we don't have a fire.
Okay. So much for the volunteers. Other business tonight. So let's move on to the business we have to get done tonight. We have a dispute over a copier we have at the firehouse, which we have not been paying the bill on the copier because we believe it, that we weren't authorized, it wasn't properly authorized. So we're in negotiations with the vendor. So the Board of Fire, I'm going to read a resolution, look for a second, and a first and a second. The Board of Fire Commissioners, by this resolution, authorizes Chairman Winter, in conjunction with legal counsel, to negotiate a full and final settlement with CIT and/or their claims agent in a disputed copier lease in an amount not to exceed $2,000. Would somebody like to make a first and a second on that?
I'll make a motion.
Jerry
Second.
and Peter. Okay, I'll poll the board. Mr. Laurie?
Aye.
Mr. Ingledon?
Aye.
Mr. Baker?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
And I'll say aye, so that's a yes. Okay, the next item. The Board of Fire Commissioners, by this resolution, authorizes Chairman Winter, in conjunction with legal counsel, to contact the Controller and the Attorney General's office regarding the distribution of foreign fire insurance monies to the Volunteer Officers Association of the New York State, of the Eastchester Fire Department, and other related concerns, if warranted, to contact the Benevolent Association and the Volunteer Officers Association of the Eastchester Fire District regarding these concerns. So basically there, we're writing the New York State Attorney General's Office, Department of Charities, which has control over these monies, and the New York State Controller's Office, which also has control over these monies, and we're going to ask them to do an audit of both, all the monies being expended from both. So can I get a first and a second on that, or discussion?
I'll make the motion. Unless we have discussion first.
Only one discussion.
Okay, anyone want to have a discussion?
Yeah, I don't think that's right. I mean, this is an organization, the VOA is an organization that helps men that if he's sick, he's disabled, in the event of a death benefit. Nobody's tampering with that money. I don't know where you guys think that they're tampering with that money, you know? So,
Benevolent or the VOA, because you said VOA.
pardon me?
You're talking about the benevolent?
No, what are you talking about? The benevolent, Dennis?
The benevolent and the VOA, both.
Okay, so you got my no vote on that.
Okay. And my comment would be, years ago, our fire district was audited by the New York State Controller. They came in and they found a number of items that were helpful for us to reorganize our front office, and based on their inspections, we were able to get enough support to make all these changes we need to make in the front office. Now we have a more smoothly running front office. I think similarly here, the New York State, the office that in Department of Charities has a special group that just looks into charities and how charities are conducting themselves. So we're just going to ask them to take a look at how this charity is conducting himself, which I think is a normal business practice. I don't think it's...
Yeah, but that's a charity thing. This is not a charity thing, the Benevolent Association.
It falls under New York State Department of Charities and the law.
It is not a charity thing. It's a benevolent association to help the families of a dead fireman or firefighter or volunteer, whatever you want to call them. It's not a charity organization. It's a death benefit. It's not an insurance policy, neither.
No, but...
It's a death benefit.
It's not actually a death benefit.
That's what it's been known to us since 1940, a death benefit.
There's nothing in here about death benefit. I'm not saying you guys are not, or they're not doing it, or they're not entitled to do it. I'm just saying the word death benefit is nowhere in here.
Right, and I'm told by our council that this organization receives money from New York State is going to fall under not-for-profit rules. Its treasurer is going to fall under the rules of a not-for-profit. It means under the rules of a not-for-profit corporation, just so everybody understands this, the treasurer is personally liable for any funds that were misappropriated.
There's
personally.
nothing misappropriate.
I'm just telling you, under New York State charitable rules, when people give out money from a not-for-profit organization, the treasurer who signs is the one personally liable. That's the rules. That's the way New York State not-for-profit law works.
Who is the treasurer of the benefit of the benevolent? Who filed the report?
The benevolent is their lawyer. The treasurer is their lawyer.
Is he a member of the corporation?
He don't know how he's a member of the corporation because he was never a volunteer. I don't believe we checked the records and couldn't find that he was ever a member of the Eastchester Fire Department.
All right, because the Section 1 speaks exactly who can be there, and again, I've read through this 3 times, and it just says used for the care and relief of disabled or indigent volunteer and exempt firemen and their families. So,
Yeah, so I don't know. That will be something the state can sort out. I don't know.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so do we have a first on or a second on this?
Make a motion.
Okay. That's Jerry. And a second?
I'll second it.
Peter, and I'll poll the board. Mr. Laurie?
No.
Okay, Mr. Inkledon?
Aye.
Mr. Baker?
Aye.
Mr. Napolitano? Aye. And I'll say aye. So we'll do that.
928.
Okay. Next. We have this is a slim possibility, of having a November election this year if the New York State Senate passes a bill, Board of Election agrees to it, and New York State Board of Election agrees to it, that we would be on the November ballot. One of the stipulations in this law is that we have to notify the Board of Elections, New York State and Westchester County, that we want to hold a November election. So we're going to send them a letter just as, here you go, guys, here's the letter, we want to hold an election in November, even though the law has not been passed yet, so we haven't put them on notice. So the Board of Fire Commissioners, by this resolution, authorizes Commissioner Winter to contact, by letter, New York State Board of Elections, Westchester County Board of Elections, advising each of the pending legislation affecting the Eastchester Fire District Commissioner's election and notifying of the Fire District's desire to hold a November election if the legislation becomes law in 2015. So This is probably wasting two 49-cent stamps, or 48-cent stamps, whether they are, but that's what we're going to be doing. Have a,
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Baker, and a second?
I'll second it.
Jerry.
It's not gonna help, but,
And all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
No.
No?
First of all, you're gonna put Tommy out of a job. Right, Tom? That passes?
That's
I
a,
might be okay with that.
that statement, I think,
No,
no, I get the vote.
I stay at no.
Okay, so that, and we have one more. The Eastchester, the Tuckahoe Public Schools is requesting they use for voting for polling place on May 19th, 2015, from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, the firehouse in Union Corners. So I don't know if we need to vote on this or just acknowledge that they're going to be using the firehouse. Mike, do we need to vote on this usually?
What do you do for the other people that wanna use the,
Well, this is just they do it every year. They do the
Still
election.
think we need a vote on it.
Okay.
yeah,
Well, there's the school district's general election or whatever, the regular election board have continued to request Station 4. It's really the only available place in that area. The only thing, that should be required is that they present liability insurance, a certificate of
They
insurance.
just use the apparatus floor.
yeah, no,
We explained to them that, they, for wheelchair accessibility, they basically required to open the overhead door and wheel in.
We use our American Legion posters. I just want to make sure it's consistent, like Anthony said.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. And if they have the proper certificate, just in case somebody trips and falls.
Okay, so
Just hold the ball.
I look for a motion to let the Eastchester Union Free School District on May 19th, between the hours of 6 and 9, use the school building for... It's Tuckahoe Union Free School District, okay. Tuckahoe Union Free School District between the hours of 6 and 9 on May 19th to use the building, provided they provide the necessary insurance release or insurance certificate. Somebody want to make that motion? I'll make the motion.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, okay, aye, okay, all in, aye.
You got a yes vote out of me.
Yep,
Also, that day, they're having a memorial service for the veteran, for Memorial Day at the Tuckahoe High School football field. I think it's at 9 o'clock,
in the morning.
that same day that they're having the elections. It's on the football field.
What do they have?
They have, last year, they started a memorial service for Memorial Day. And it's on Election Day at the football field at Tuckahoe High School. I'm not sure if it's 9 or 9:30.
Vendor, assuming they're funded.
Yes,
We can do that, right?
yeah.
So you're gonna do that?
Who do you want to use, that one? Okay, now, I'm just going through my list. Yeah,
Approve it, assuming that outdoor cameras are using conduit.
right,
If not, it's disapproved.
okay. We had discussion over several months, of putting cameras in the Station 1 firehouse, exterior cameras playing back to a DVR, which is now fairly standard in most buildings. This building has them throughout. We had 3 vendors come in, 3 prices. I don't have the price in front of me. That one was not for the same number of cameras, though.
A-plus technology and home drone.
Right, but his cameras are only, he didn't have the same, he only had
12.
12, and this one's 16. So, we have a proposal here,
Oh, it's 5, it's 11, actually.
11, this
5
one's
and
16.
6. That's 16. That's 16?
16.
Okay, so it's still the better value per camera. Okay, so I don't see any reason why we wouldn't go with that, assuming they're going to use conduit for the exterior cameras.
Yeah, one of the questions we had was it wasn't spelled out clearly whether they would put the wiring and conduit on the outside of the building, which we would want them to do. The 3 proposals didn't spell out the conduit. Cheapest point per camera came into Alarms and More, Islip, New York, for $10,327.95. and this is for a Nuvico camera system. So,
I'd like a resolution for that, assuming they're using conduit. If they're not, we're going to have to reevaluate it all over again. Right?
in other words, the outside wiring needs to be within conduit.
Right.
We can wait till next month, too, and do that over again next month.
If we can pass it just like that, with that stipulation, I'd rather do it now.
Okay.
Can we?
That's just outside or inside also?
It's going to be perimeters, apparatus bay, and garage.
You can, yeah.
Not inside it won't be in the dorms, kitchen, or anything like that.
No, I know. In the mechanic shop,
Mechanic shop, apparatus bay, and the perimeter of the building. That's my understanding.
and not in the front office?
Not in the front office, no.
Okay.
No, it won't be any of the living quarters or anything like that.
No, I understand that.
Yeah, so let's pass a resolution awarding it to Alarms and More with the assumption that they will use conduit
Conduit.
for exterior camera connections.
Okay. You want to do it? I
Anyone
know
wanna
this
pass the
vendor,
motion?
so I'm not sure if I want to.
Anyone want to pass a motion on? So I already said it. Do I hear a motion for that? Anybody?
Say it again, 'cause
Okay.
it was kind of confusing.
All right, so it's a motion to approve Alarms and More
Right.
for the installation of 16 cameras at headquarters. These 16 cameras we want a requirement for the exterior cameras to be protected by conduit, right?
Not just wires run down the
Not
side
just
of the
wire
building.
run down the side. So if they're not going to do that, we would not pick this vendor, and we would reevaluate them all over again.
We wait a month.
Was it?
Or we can just wait a month.
16 cameras, including like those, all the inside equipment,
Yeah.
monitoring.
Where the cameras?
I know one of
Yeah.
them,
How many are in?
Depends on-
Exterior?
Ralph didn't give us the diagrams. I don't have the diagrams from Ralph.
So you don't know how many are going to be interior or exterior? That would have been the same camera
I think we should get more information on that first.
Okay. We'll just, Jerry, let's just do it next month.
Okay.
We'll just move on and do it next month
I
when we have
thought we
the,
asked for it a couple of times, but.
We have. This has been-
That proposal doesn't say anything, and
okay, one letter, this one, this one, this. I'm just moving along here to my list. Well, we can do that next month. Okay, we have another issue that is out there, that people, we've had a issue with the night shift payments to retire. There was a number of retirees who weren't billed properly for their night shift. The fire district has served, or in the process of serving, most of those retirees. Comes out to about 15, 18 people who've gotten served a lawsuit looking to recover the monies. We understand we want to make this, we have to bring the action because we have a fiduciary to do so, to bring in, to collect monies that are due the fire district. Also, these same folks get a Medicaid Part B payment from the fire district every year, which we send them a check. If they're married, it's $2,500. We send them roughly a year. I think the fire district is going to try. We sent a letter out earlier last year to all these same folks saying, we'd rather not have to bring a legal action. We'd rather just do an offset. I think that offer is going to still be out there for anyone who wants to approach the fire district with that offer. And we will, John Molazari will take the details and report back to the board. But basically, I think the offer is going to look like the $2,500 we paid last year for Medicaid Part B we'd like back. Going forward, we set aside the Medicaid Part B payments that we would send you to offset against what you owe us, and we go like that until the debt is extinguished. I think that would be painless for most of these folks, and it would be an easy workaround. So we're just putting that carrot out there, so if anybody wants to go down that road to have a discussion in that kind of framework, that's what we're hoping to come to some kind of negotiated settlement with. And but if we don't hear from folks, we have to do our normal fiduciary duty thing. So I think that's out there. So That's, as far as my punch list here, that was the things I had. I'm going to go down back to the agenda and see what we have on the agenda. Any new business that we haven't discussed yet? Local 916 report? No report tonight? Board member, volunteers?
On the Tuesday, the 24th of this month, we're hosting the Sound Shore Chiefs Association meeting at Station 4, and we're requesting to serve beer, wine, and soda to our dignitaries from out of the district.
Serving, I'm sorry, I missed that. Serve what?
Beer, wine, and soda.
The
Light
firehouse.
refreshments at the Station 4 down in Chester Heights.
The firehouses are alcohol-free. We're not going to be doing that.
I understand that, but at your January meeting, when you passed this, it was on a case-by-case basis, and it was voted on by each member of the board. I'm asking now for a request. It's one night, one time for the year, and that's it. It's to serve beer, wine, and soda, light refreshments to our guests from the Sound Shore Chiefs Association.
Who invited, just for curiosity, who invited those folks?
Our chiefs invited them. They
Right.
rotate from every department.
No, I'm getting to a different point.
Go ahead.
Was it the volunteer, was it the VOA that invited them, or was it a company?
No. It was the chiefs, volunteer chiefs, that invited them to our quarters. We've hosted them last March. It's
Last
a one-time, one-year
Yeah.
thing.
It's on a rotation basis.
It's on a
you know.
rotation basis.
We just went to their meeting in West
West Harrison,
And-
time before that, it was in Rye.
And the time before that, it was in Mamaroneck.
Right.
It rotates.
I don't think it's a problem. I think his question is, who's the volunteer chief that,
Well, Mike, no, I didn't know whether the chief was it's a chief of the whole department group, or the volunteers, deputy chief of the volunteers.
It's
Right.
the Sound Shore Chiefs Association.
I got it.
I understand that, but I'm going to tell you who's involved in it. It's the ex-chiefs, current chiefs, and deputy chiefs that are involved in the association,
They form the parades around the county and
other things, but that's what it is. Those are the individuals that come. It's chiefs, ex-chiefs.
Got it.
Assistants from the other departments.
Yeah, I'm not inclined, to me, thinking about alcohol and driving on highways and all that stuff, that they have to go back and drive home, I don't have a lot of interest in having alcohol served in a firehouse, myself personally.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't have a problem with just the one night, because I was there, and I was there at a few other ones, and I have to say, they're very respectable, and trust me, there wasn't much beer really used up. There was a lot of soda used up, I gotta admit that.
I don't think anybody has a problem with him hosting the meeting or serving soda at the wazoo. It's just the beer and alcohol. What's the plan to handle all that?
How long is the meeting?
How long is the meeting? Who's going to?
In a cooler, it's going to be brought up. When the meeting's over, it's going to go out. It's not going to linger or stay in the firehouse. It's one time, that's it.
How long is the meeting? What time does it start? What
Starts
time
at
is it-
about 8 o'clock and it ends
By
9:30, 10 maybe at
10
the
o'clock, everybody's
latest.
gone.
Yeah, way before that, it's gone.
In fact,
Meeting lasts about maybe 45 minutes to an
We
hour.
went to the meeting 8 o'clock, and we were on our way home at 9:30. We were on our way home.
You want to get a motion? Because obviously a couple of us say yes and a couple of us say no, so.
Yeah,
I have no problem with it.
so Anthony's going to make that motion that you can
I'll make
serve
the
it.
motion, and I vote yes on it.
Anybody want to second it?
I'll second it. Yeah, I would second it just for.
Okay. Mr., you're seconding it, so it's, okay. Mr. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Ingledon?
Yes.
No?
No. Alcohol, no.
Because of the way it was done, I'll vote yes this one time.
Okay. As a policy, we don't want to do this again. I myself personally, I just don't think it's a great,
It won't happen until next year.
Yeah, but we passed a no alcohol policy in every one of our facilities. That also holds true
for when we have public parties, like the Christmas parties.
I think we left the option open, if I recall.
We
that
did.
We would consider this on a case-by-case basis, and given that this was already prearranged, that they were going to hold this meeting here,
Because the
I was-
Civic
I was willing to
Association-
vote, but I agree with Dennis.
The Civic
Anthony.
Association has their yearly party at the Chester Heights Firehouse
Well,
also.
what I would say now, if it's a year away, there's plenty of time to prepare, and I don't think I would vote in favor of it again, so just,
Up to you.
okay?
Okay. Board member comments? We have to pay the bills.
Oh, good.
All good? And how much is the total, do we know? Do you have that sheet right there?
It's two, hang on.
2.
36 for this one.
Is there anything I'm missing? Just let me see if I'm missing anything. I had a small, long list.
Before we close, could I just ask a question on the local 916? What is the deal with the open position of Captain Bucieri? We ever going to appoint one?
That's not the position for, that's not a question for the local, it's a question for the board.
Well, I mean, I'll address it to the board then. Are we ever going to appoint a captain to the local? I
I
mean,
think that's a personnel issue that was better off served in executive session. My own view.
okay, that's your view, but I still think we should find out what's going on, because we're short a captain. It's what, 7, 8 months, Stephen, that we're short a captain? Is the local interested in having a captain reappoint? Sure, because we lost a paid fireman when we appointed 5, right? We lost 1, so we're still short one man, right? Am I correct? So we're short 1 man there, and we're short a captain. We're paying overtime to every lieutenant that takes the captain's position.
No, we're.
Why don't we,
The firefighter.
No, I think-
firefighter
I
roster's
think-
full.
I can't hear you, Stephen.
Wait a second. If Steve wants to talk, he should come up to the microphone,
Okay.
for one. And 2, it's the board's prerogative of how we want to staff the department. And
Well, that's why I'm asking.
it's better served in these discussions in executive session to have staffing discussions amongst ourselves of how we want to staff for replacement of officers. That's just the way it's usually done. As far as, we always had 4 officers and a float officer. So you had 4.
And
We have 4 groups, and we have a captain assigned to each group today, and then a float officer. So there is still a captain assigned to each group today, and that's just the way it is. Then your question comes when somebody comes out, one of the other captains picks up his shift, so we give overtime to another captain for his shift. There is always the possibility, we haven't done it yet, that on an as-need basis, you could bring a lieutenant up and pay the lieutenant the captain's pay, which is a dispute we're going to go back and forth with the union. It's an open question, but that question was raised as a possibility for the board, and the union has given us some pushback on that, but that's where it stands. That's where it stands. And so these questions should be handled amongst ourselves, and as a board member, that's generally how it's done. Okay, so the
But
bills.
I still think we should discuss this, whether we're in executive session or here, because we're paying somebody overtime. We got that much money to pay overtime?
I think it would be helpful if you calculated what it cost to, I think it's just, there's a lot of factors involved. It's not just there's a lot of factors involved. And it would spend you'd have to spend a little bit of time reading the contract and then factoring all the cost and the retirement cost and the workman's comp and the health care, and do your math.
The man that's doing this is already getting his benefits, isn't he? The man who is getting the overtime, isn't he getting his benefits already? He is a firefighter.
Yes, but it's not as, dollar and cents wise, it's not obvious to me, okay? It's just not obvious right now. Okay, so.
Well, tell me, what is it? Is it something that you don't like on the list? Or who's on the list? Is
We
that what it
haven't
is?
called for a list, and we shouldn't have this discussion here. And I don't know who's on the list. Honestly, I have no idea who's on the list. I have no clue who's on that list.
I think we should resolve this in a few months, Dennis, really, because we're short a captain. Well, that's what I know.
Okay.
And I think we should resolve this. I like you said, you're not going to resolve it tonight, but I think we should resolve it.
We talked about it in our executive session last year,
I didn't hear what you said, though.
about resolving this captain issue.
Okay.
Okay. So we have bills to pay tonight. One set of warrants is February 25th, 2015, totaling $290,976.02. So $290,976.02 for the February warrants, and I might as well do, since there's no conflict here, we'll do them both at the same time. The March 11 warrants, 2015, is $36,615.13. $36,615.13. So can I get a motion to approve those?
Make that motion.
So Mr. Baker, and a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Incledon, Mr. Napolitano, and I'll poll the board. Mr. Laurie?
Aye.
Mr. Incledon?
Aye.
Mr. Baker?
Aye.
Napolitano?
Aye.
And I'll say aye, so we'll approve the bills. Now, I have one other comment to make. We know it's been a horrible winter, and it has been a really difficult winter. It's also been a difficult winter for a lot of the local shopkeepers in town, within the village of Tuckahoe, Bronxville, and Eastchester, because people simply didn't go out. So I would suggest if anybody is going to go out for dinner or shop locally, the local merchants have really gotten hammered pretty hard this winter. So if you're going to do any shopping, they're paying their property taxes, they're doing all that. You may want to make an effort to entertain locally in the next, as the spring months arrive. And that's my public service announcement for the,
Things I want to say.
and
It is Restaurant Week, so that's an added bonus if you do shop locally. A lot of local restaurants are participating. Also, the Westchester County Civil Service exam for those who registered is going to be held on the 28th of March. There's a brief study guide on the Westchester County website, which people can look at, but just a reminder, because that'll be the end of this month.
And I would think we should close tonight's meeting in the honor of Ernest Gallo, our former career firefighter who passed
Memory
away.
of, yes.
Okay,
I
any
would
other
also just
comments?
remind everybody, as I came in earlier, the sidewalk's turned into a sheet of ice when you leave.
This one?
I almost went down coming in. So,
No, 2078 for you.
no.
Okay, so we have a moment of silence, and then we'll adjourn. Moment of silence for Mr. Gallo. Meeting adjourned.